So I'm here with brother Joshua. He's a content creator across the internet. Like, I love your videos, like the fact that you talk about like current events, and you're also a member of the Nation of Islam. I think one of the things I really like about your videos is that I feel like, they're scholarly. There's so many people on the internet that like put out like not factual information, and leads you like down like the wrong path. But like, I feel like you're really responsible about the content you put out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate that, man. And when I initially started creating content, that was a big driving force behind it. I'm a history nerd. I'm a big reader. I'm a fan of Black literature, Black scholarship. Um, Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, Joseph Ben Yakinen, Francis Cress Welsing. These are like my heroes. And so I seen a unique space to be able to lift up their work in the creative way that would, get attention from, probably a lot of people that probably wouldn't read so much of their works. And so that's what I'm geared around doing, man, is kind of keeping that Black history and keeping these our people informed, man. There's so much good research and so much good scholarship out there. And at times social media can make us lazy. So I try to I'll put in the work of reading the literature, and I just strive to share it with the community, man.
Are you from Chicago originally?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm from Chicago as well. Like, I'm from the South Side. Where are you from?
Man, 73rd,
Okay.
73rd, Stony, East Side.
Oh,
East
yeah.
Side.
I'm over South 85th off Kedzie.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool, man.
Like, yeah, man. I was like, really like, impressed just like, by your content. Like you were saying, like, that you talk about like Francis Cress Wilson and show like, the ISIS papers and talk about that. And like, you don't really like see a lot of that necessarily on the internet, especially today. It's more like, so like, I feel like the algorithms like favor like people who are focusing on, the salacious type of content opposed to like anything with like any real intellectual value.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what we try to I hate using the word combat, but give balance to. I'll say it like that. Is you get on TikTok and you got chicks shaking their butt all day. You feel me? Like doing that and all that content and just dancing and whatever things like that. And that's fine. That's certain people's lanes. I'm not here to knock anybody. However, I just seen there was a void for intellectual content, something where people can actually grow from, that they can learn from. And if you look at my videos, I really try to get over a powerful message in 3 minutes or less, because of the attention span is there, And so that may consist of me listening to a full lecture in its entirety. And there may be something that jumps out to me. And for me, like I was already doing this before. I was already reading. I was already watching lectures to begin with. Like I'm a nerd. I guess you know what I'm saying? That's how I get down. So I was just like, man, boom, I'm gonna use this clip right here because especially if it's very relevant to what's going on in the current times.
You talk about being a nerd. I feel like I would consider myself a nerd as well. Like, I was a history major. I went to graduate school for history, and like growing up in Chicago, I felt that like education wasn't something that was always celebrated in my community. Like, on the South Side, I've been over East. Like I used to hang out over there, like, when I was younger. And I think like, it wasn't like, it's not cool, like necessarily to say like you go to school or you're going to college. Like people like, don't really celebrate that here.
Right. And man, you kind of touched on what was some of my inspiration behind the content that I was producing. Like if you go on my TikTok now, in my bio, it just says simply just striving to make Black male intellectuality more appealing. And that's it, is to put it in such a way where it's just like, oh, this is cool. Like you don't know Francis Cress Welsing? Like, bro, where you at? Like you haven't heard of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? Like, bro, it had those kind of conversations in our community, especially among like the youth, making it popular, making it cool to know, to be socially conscious, to be socially aware. And when that can be like the cool thing, as opposed to only being like the new Drake album, you know what I'm saying, or the new Future record, or the Lakers game, knowing the stats about that, when we can actually spit facts in regards to like our ancestors and Black history and intellectuality, when that becomes cool, I feel like we'll see a rise as a whole in our community.
Most definitely. What was it like growing up in Chicago?
Man, I lived a little bit of everywhere in Chicago, outskirts in Chicago. Most recently, when I moved away, I was on 73rd, west side of Chicago, family from there. Grew up in Aurora as well. And it's home, man. I love Chicago. I'm on the West Coast now. I fell in love out here, man. I fell in love with the weather, rather
Yeah.
see palm trees and mountains. I'm like, it's a long way from Chicago. I like it. But growing up in Chicago was cool, man. I grew up in a very diverse environment. A lot of Hispanics, a lot of blacks, of course. You know what I mean? White folks, poor white folks, and but I definitely saw the gang culture. I was confronted with that, just like every young black male. You got two choices. For me, I was a musician, and a lot of the big homies that was selling dope or doing street activities and stuff like that, they kind of like looked out, like, nah, bro, like you're talented in other areas, like ain't no need to do this. Plus I had a family. I had my mother worked hard to keep me out of trouble, and so I love and I respect her for that. And and just having positive male influences in my life that just showed me like, hey, this life, the street life, that ain't really what you want. Growing up, seeing friends, get murdered, get killed, things like that, that'll forever stick with you. As I continue to grow older and mature, I sometimes think about those ones like, man, he didn't make it past 16. Like that was one of the guys, my homie, and it gives me a little bit more of a sense of responsibility that, since Allah God has blessed me with this time to do something with it, not to be frivolous with my time, not to just be just an entertainer, but, to educate, to help, to, leave to leave my community in a better condition, and so that's what I'm about.
And you say you were a musician. What kind of music did you make?
Man, R&B, hip hop and R&B. Yeah, I sang. Did pop as well. Played in some cover bands. We, were all over Chicago. That was a fun time, man. That was playing the Chicago club scene, dance music, and all of that. Like that was a good time back in the day. But I discovered that gift like early on, man. Like middle school, I realized like, oh man, I may be able to sing or something, and kind of got it cultivated in high school and started doing talent shows, WGCI events, which one of the major radio stations out there. So yeah, like, and it kind of stuck with me, bro. And I started being able to generate some revenue off of it at a young age, man. Started making some money. Had my uncle who was he was like my manager. I was getting like 500 a show back then. You couldn't tell me nothing. Felt like the man in the shop.
Yeah, man, that's definitely good, man. What got you into the Nation of Islam?
Bro, when I discovered I was gonna have my first son, it scared the hell out of me because I think I was 26 years old, and I wanted to be able to teach my son who God was. And I realized that I wasn't very equipped to do that, even though I had, grown up in church, come from a family of Christians, Baptists. So we had the church and revival and all that. So it was around, it was in the household, but it never really stuck with me, never really resonated, the doctrine, if you will. So when I was gonna have a son, I was like, man, I really want to teach him how to be a man, teach him who God is. And I realized that I wasn't in the best position as a teacher. So I went on my search for truth. And during my search for truth, being a history nerd, being a student of history, that's when I started discovering things about like how we as Black folks in masses became Christians. And that kind of turned me off a bit, to be quite honest, but I didn't really want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Wasn't ready to just be like, nah, I don't believe in God, anything like that. And one day while I was searching on YouTube, I came across the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And he was teaching about Jesus. And I'd never heard anybody, let alone a Muslim, teach on Jesus the way he did. And that truth just ninja kicked me in the chest, man. And And I honestly feel like I was being groomed for Islam at a young age. Because years before I even, came and heard the minister, like I had heard him actually, there was a song he did. He was a calypso singer,
Right.
called "A White Man's Heaven is a Black Man's Hell." And I really didn't know it was him, but I fell in love with the song as being like a young musician. And he was teaching in the song, like, why are we called Negroes? Why are we deaf, dumb, and blind? Why is everyone making progress, yet we seem to be lagging so far behind? And here is this 12, 13-year-old kid listening to this, like getting knowledge of self for the very first time. So when I hear him again as a young adult male, it really resonated with me. And so I just called up the mosque. I Googled, I'm like, where y'all at? Oh, y'all on what? Y'all down the street, And hey, and I showed up, and the rest is history. It just ended up being something that resonated with me. I tell people all the time, for me, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was the thread that tied spirituality to activism that I hadn't found in any other place. Like I found Black activist groups, I found, things like that, people who were, quote unquote conscious. And then we had the spirituality, and mainly it was just like the church, and this kind of tied the two together, and it appealed to my intellectual side. And it was just a wrap from there, man. Just
Yeah, that's a really amazing story of like, finding like your spirituality. I saw like on your Instagram, you actually met the Honorable Minister Farrakhan.
Yeah, yes. I've been blessed to meet with them and work with them, work alongside them. When I came into the nation, I came in, of course, Mosque Mariam is the headquarters of the Nation of Islam. So when I came in, I was just there to serve, to help, to go out in the community, to do what we do. That's what attracted me to it, was the actual work in the streets, just touching our people. Like that's what it's about, each one teach one, and I was blessed to serve in the ministry class. So I would teach on Sundays on the webcast, and I eventually that would go to me being able to meet with the minister and him knowing, myself, and him asking for me to speak at certain like engagements and things like that. And it was just it was a blessing. It's like a dream come true. I never expected any of it. You know what I mean? Like to go from a man that you fell in love with online and teaching and studying from and feeding from, to even being blessed to be at his residence, and he's Brother Joshua, and I'm, oh wow, assalamu alaikum, brother minister. And so it's very surreal, and it's not something I take for granted at all. It's definitely a blessing, man. Definitely.
No, man, that's really amazing. I have a lot of respect for Minister Farrakhan. I like, I've listened to a lot of the things that he said like over the years, just videos, and I like the video clips that you post, and I think like, it's really good, like some of the messages, especially for like, the work that we need to do in the community. How did you start creating content online?
How did I start?
Yes.
Oh, just seeing the void of there's not a whole lot of the socially active content. So I just wanted to, put my own spin on it. And it really went to the next level when I jumped out in my defense of Ye. Kanye. Um, I I was just going off of pure. I had started doing things on a podcast, speaking on different conscious issues and stuff like that. But when that happened, I was one of the first to just jump out and be like, nah, hands off, Ye. Like, this is our brother. Like, you know what I mean? Like, And what he's doing is actually a good thing, because you do have a group of so-called Jews in power that do control the music industry, that do control the entertainment industry. And he's not saying every single Jewish person is evil or bad. I think that's a very weak way to look at it, and an ignorant way to look at it. But he is calling out that certain group of people that are in power, and we need to be listening to what our brother's saying, because yes, he may come across very blunt, it may be very rash, however, it's very sincere. And if you listen to not how he says something, but what he says, then you'll extract the message. And so that's when I began really starting to hit on that point there. And the videos kind of took off, man. I pissed off a lot of people. that aren't for us, but also I got a lot of love.
No, I love Kanye West. He's one of my favorite artists, being from Chicago. Like the College Dropout, dropped at like, a pivotal time in my life growing up, like, where this was like, an album that I'm listening to and is basically, the soundtrack to my life. And I think like the media, like, was really selective of like, how they like, they'll take like maybe one sound bite and that'll be the clip and it'll make them sound crazy as hell. But then if you go like do the research, where it's a little bit more context to like what he said. And like, he's saying like, a little bit things that aren't so crazy, that really make a lot of sense, that people were kind of ignoring sometimes and like looking over. And even like, with Kanye, the media is not really the only person that does that. They do this with everyone, where it's like, even like we were talking on Twitter about Grant Cardone, where like, people were like, saying that he's racist. And like, I didn't take any issue with the remarks. I've heard Black people say that. I've heard like, other authors, like, who are Black, like mention that, like, like this is the feedback that they're necessarily getting from publishing companies sometimes and stuff. And so it's like a true statement. Maybe how he worded it wasn't in the most sensitive way, but like, I didn't find it like, a racist statement.
Exactly. And the fact of the matter is this, is like Black people, us as a community, we've been through a lot. You know what I mean? Like, especially our sojourn here in America, we have been through a lot. We're talking over 400 years of chattel slavery, Jim Crow segregation, redlining, systemic racism, all of that, you know? So when you got a white guy that speaks on Black folks, regardless, we're conditioned to see the evil, or what we may perceive as evil, in his tone, in his message, whatnot, because of the context of the social climate rather of what we've been through. Right now, me personally, like I know people who know Grant, and also I follow his works, and I don't believe this is somebody that's just anti-Black or racist, or he's a sincere dude. He's speaking real, and he speaks very candid, and he'll be the first to tell you, like, hey, I'm not the most educated person myself. You know what I mean? Like, and so I wasn't really trying to come off as defending the brother, but I defend truth and I defend principles, regardless if the person's Black, white, whatever. And that's something that some people, even my people that follow me, can't really grab a hold of, is that I'm for truth. Yes, I do speak on stuff that pertains to the Black community, and I'm Black first, pro-Black. Oh, don't make no mistake about it. I'm for us. However, I'm not ignorant in being for us, and I'm not a bigot in being for us. Like, if somebody says something truthful, if there's a principle that, regardless of where it comes from, stand on the principle, man. That ain't got nothing to do with color. Like, we gotta mature from that.
Definitely. Why do you feel like, that the media is so deceptive sometimes, that like, there's a lot of times like these stories, like where the headlines almost like, are misleading. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of like, truthful journalists out there. Like, a lot of people seem very irresponsible at times.
I believe that's intentional. I really do believe that is intentional. Like, you have to realize that, as we like, it's in part of our teachings, and of course, like the 5% nation of gods and earth, they've adopted this as well. 85% of the people on the planet Earth are blind, deaf, and dumb to the true knowledge of God, self, Satan, and the time that we're living in. 85% of the people are completely blind, deaf, and dumb. These are the sheep of the world, right? They're caught in the matrix, if you will, right? Then you have 10%, the 10% population know the truth, but teach other than the truth for monetary gain. Then you have the 5%, what are called the poor righteous teachers. These are people like such as yourself, myself, the intellectuals who are striving to wake up the 85%, who are striving to wake up the masses. So this 10%, the reason their sole purpose is to keep us blind, deaf, and dumb, to keep us ignorant to the true knowledge of what is going on in the world, and the true knowledge of who our open enemy really is. Because the more that we can stay ignorant, the more they can capitalize, the more they can generate revenue off of our ignorance, right? So all these things with the clickbait things and stuff like that, it's all a power play. It's all a power play to keep the masses of the people distracted, to keep us ignorant, to keep us bickering and fighting over these non-consequential issues while they are controlling the real issues behind our back and making money and exploiting us from our ignorance. So when things like when news stories come out and what things like that, I'm always looking for the hidden hand of Satan. You got to, because he there. This is, make no mistake about it. I try to tell folks that this is Satan's world. Don't get it twisted. This is Satan's world. And when I say Satan, I'm not talking about some little red man with horns, with a little picket, you know what I mean, that's running around underground. I'm talking about a real deal flesh and blood human being who is giving their life over to wickedness. That's Satan. So the scripture says we war not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The rulers of darkness of this world, that's Satan, right? So every time something major happens, a major event, a major news article or something like that, I would implore people to, hey, look deeper into it. It's Satan he's a master deceiver, and we'll look at something and be like, oh, that's man, whole time it's socially conditioning you, your subconscious, and also grooming you for what he eventually wants to run on you. And like we seen that with the whole with the Fauci juice, with the whole COVID piece, all the misinformation that they were putting out about that and the coercion just so they can inject people, right? So I always am looking for the hidden hand of the enemy. And that's something that my teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, has taught me and taught us to do. It's like, hey, look into this thing. Whenever an unrighteous person brings you any information, always look into it.
It's funny you speak about COVID because another member of the Nation of Islam, brother Riza Islam, I reached out to him to do an interview. We're supposed to do something, but like I saw on Twitter, like where he his YouTube channel was deleted. And it seems like a lot of people who speak truth, it's like they don't want that on the internet. So like, how do you avoid like, like putting content that like, maybe upsets people? Because some people are upset just because you're a member of the Nation of Islam. They are considering you an anti-Semite,
Mm-hmm. Oh man, I was in Rolling Stone magazine as an anti-Semite, the champion of the anti-Semites. They had me in there. I'm like, damn, I never had a problem with normal Jewish people, but they do that. They throw stones and hide their hands. I've had my TikTok banned. I jumped to right away to like 50,000 subscribers or followers on TikTok, and they snatched that thing quick from me because I hadn't yet learned how to provide the information while at the same time flying under the radar. It's difficult. It's very difficult if you are a truth teller in society, in today's society. If you are trying to awaken the masses of our people, if you are trying to put something good out there that just people can, I tell people all the time, you don't have to think like me. Just think. just think, period. Look at all the empirical data. Look at all the evidences that's presented to you and make your own decision. So I should just lay out the facts or lay out what's there and let people make their own decision. But we do have a wicked government. We do have wicked people in power that don't want, once again, it goes back to that 10% that want to keep the people blind, deaf, and dumb to what's really going on. And so as a content creator who thrives on pushing truth, man, it's a hard field out there for us, man. It's difficult, man, trying to put videos out and constantly getting them muted or constantly being shadowed. I'm still shadow banned on Facebook. I had grown to an international audience. A couple of influencers from Africa were posting a lot of my videos when I was talking on the secret relationship between Blacks and Jews. And my people over in Africa, they was really loving my content. They were sharing it and it was going up. Everything that I did on Facebook was just, it was wildfire. I was like, wow, this is powerful. And that was the first time I was like, I need to really be careful and do my due diligence in terms of like the research and what I'm actually putting out there, since I have people, a larger following, and people trying to like get the knowledge. They shut that down. Facebook shut that down. They were like, I'm still shadow banned on there. It's going on, man, I want to say like 6 months now,
Okay.
5, 6 months. But they do that to suppress certain individuals and really it's not an attack at me. I'm Brother Joshua. I'm not anything special in that regard. It's the truth. The truth is what people fear. And so how do you stop the truth? You make up lies, you suppress their platform, you ban their platform unjustly. And that's why we are working to create a new world, new platforms, new Black owned movements and tech companies, to stop this censorship.
What do you feel like are the biggest issues in the Black community?
The biggest issue in the Black community is our lack of unity and ignorance. That those two go hand in hand, man. We're not uniting because we're ignorant. So the first thing we have to do is impart wisdom, impart knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to our people in a way that they can have it. I feel like, especially for like my generation, is we're tired of the same old type of preaching, this old just have faith and that type of deal. Like, nah, I feel like we, in a sense, we are starting to grow up spiritually. So what was good for our parents may not be good for us no more. We want more. You know what I mean? We want more, but we're not always finding more, and so that's why we need certain platforms to help out. I commend my brother RZA, brother Ben, myself, that strives to just put out the information, put out good content that awakens the masses. We all were there. I was there. I ain't fall out of heaven. Shoot, you know what I mean? When I was in the world, in the streets, I was doing me. You could care less about the struggle, could care less about any of that, man. But it was something that was a word that was spoken, that touched me, that resonated in me, that made me want to change. And because of that, I received that word that made me want to join on and unite with other like-minded individuals. Now we have unity. So I believe just that those two parts right there, man. Ignorance is a great hindrance to us, and our lack of unity. If we could just come, and some people confuse unity with uniformity. They think unity is all of us looking the same, all of us sounding the same, all of us under the same religion, all of us with the same. Nah, that's uniformity. I don't care nothing about that. You can be a Jew, you could be a Christian, you could be an Israelite, you could be a Pan-Africanist, a Buddhist, whatever it is you subscribe to, as long as we can come together on the basis of you Black, I'm Black, you catching hell, I'm catching hell, our people are catching hell. That's enough for us to unite and do something for us as a people. And we got to have that mindset, man.
Definitely. You talked about like, being labeled an anti-Semite, like, on Rolling Stone. I've been on the end of criticism on social media. Is not a fun thing. How do you like, keep your mental health healthy? Especially if like, you're being attacked on online.
Man, I see it as an honor. It's a sign of success. Like I say, I'm not here to be liked by the whole world. And
Right.
that's the main fact. Jesus said that, if you read the scriptures, when they said, if you were of me, if you were of this world, the world would love you as its own. But as it is, you have been chosen out of the world. That's why the world hates you. So if you really want to follow Jesus, you're gonna get hated. You're gonna get hated on. You got to remember the Jesus of 2,000 years ago. He was in a beef with the so-called Jews. He called them the synagogue of Satan. He called them out on their lies, on their hypocrisy, and they trumped up charges. They wanted to kill Jesus. They didn't like Jesus. Even the Jewish Talmud speaks of Jesus and his mother Mary boiling in hot excrement. This is the Talmud in their holy book, talking about Jesus boiling in. So if we call ourselves followers of the Christ or striving to live a life that's Christ-like, right? Then man, it's gonna come with that. then the rulers of darkness, man, in high places, of course they're gonna throw shade. So when I get that, start getting that type of hate, oh, bring it. Bring it. Man, it's almost like an honor. I'm thankful that I'm on your radar. That means I'm giving you devil's hell. And while at the same time, that means I'm doing something right. That means I'm effective, because they only get mad and they only start doing that when you're effective. See,
Right.
if I was ineffective in getting this truth out, if I was ineffective in exposing these devils in the world, they could care less. But somebody's listening. People are listening, and people are responding, and people are doing research for themselves. So now we got to attack this brother. Now we got to call him anti-Semitic and all these other things. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Right. I think, like, you know, anytime that you put out content that is truthful, there's going to be people that come for you, especially like when you have the receipts to back up like the truth. And like I've recently been on the receiving end of some criticism of my own, like for the past years, like I've been, you know, someone who like has been attacked online, like, you know, for writing things that are completely factual. I don't, like, you know, make anything up, or like, you know, like,
Right.
you know, it's just like the truth. And like people will come at you and, like, you know, make up things or write blogs about you, or do YouTube videos. And, and you
All
know,
of that, man. All of
like
that.
you know, where you at on the West Coast?
I'm in Phoenix.
Oh yeah,
I'm
Phoenix. Phoenix is nice, man. How do you like living out there?
I do. I love it, bro. I honestly love it. Beautiful weather. That's attractive to me, man. Is that, and it's just I feel like it's a higher quality of life coming
Right.
from Chicago. Um, Good. Phoenix is a very, very spiritual place as well, you know, with the native and our indigenous family out here in the mountains. Is very peaceful. And this is a home. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have homes here, you
Wow.
know. So it's a very peaceful place, a very spiritual place, and that I've been blessed to call my home. I don't anticipate leaving the West Coast anytime soon. I may move further west, um, to the California area, just for more opportunities, things like that. But LA is so expensive, man.
Right.
But
Yeah, like I lived in LA for like 6 years. Both my daughters were born there. And it was a good time, but we lived in South Central. You know,
okay,
before like it became like more gentrified, like as we were leaving, but like when we lived there, it was like the stereotypical idea of what living in South Central would be like. I remember one time someone actually got shot in front of our apartment, you know. So like we ended up moving, and then we moved to Salt Lake City for a while, but now I live in Florida. And I really, like, you know, enjoyed though, like living on the West Coast though. Like I like the lifestyle, you know, being able to barbecue every day, you know,
yeah.
because yeah, it's like, you know, it's nothing beats it. What is like the community of, like, you know, the Nation of Islam on the West Coast? Because I kind of, like, you know, associate it mostly like with Chicago, but I never really looked at it like, you know, other states.
Man, so we are a nation within a nation, truly. The Nation of Islam is family, is home, and but there are mosques all around the country. We have a mosque here in Phoenix, Muhammad Mosque number 32, smaller mosque, but big in spirit. And of course, on the West Coast, LA is where we have our regional mosque, headed by my big brother and mentor, student minister Abdul Malik Saeed, formerly Brother Tony Muhammad, out there doing a great work with a lot of our artists and entertainers, you know, and really reaching our people. And it's bigger than just, sometimes people hear like Nation of Islam and think like, oh, you got to be a Muslim for them to rock with you. Like, no, no, not at all. Like, you got to be a part of the original family. You got to be for freedom, justice, and equality. You got to be for truth. And that's what we pride ourselves on. Yes, our work is of course in the Black community, but our work is going after our people, man. And so that's the beautiful thing about the nation, is all around the country you'll find mosques, you'll find like-minded individuals who are all in the same thing, man. It's about getting that message of truth out. You know, we all have our different ways and expression. You have your unique way of doing it. I have mine. We have other brothers within the nation that have theirs, and then we got other people that may not be in the mosque, but they family. They still in the Nation of Islam. Every black man, woman, and child we consider part of this is your nation. And when I break that down to people of being like Islam, what is it? It means submission to God. Literally, if you translate the word Islam from the Arabic language to English, submission to God's will. So if you believe in God, if you believe in a power that's greater than yourself, if you believe in the principles of freedom, justice, equality, if you believe in all of that, man, then by nature, you believe in Islam. You're a Muslim. You submit your will to do God's will. Sometimes we like to look at the customs and the dogma associated with it. But when we remove titles and just focus on principles, we find that, man, we all believe the same things. You know, just got a little different expression.
Yeah, I have a lot of love for Islam. Have you done your trip to Mecca?
Not yet. Lord willing. Inshallah, Lord willing, that's something that I really look forward to. The Holy Land, man, they got a lot of beef going on over there too, man. So you got to pick a time. Got to pick a time when they ain't tripping, bro. I'm like, man, I'm just trying to make a lot. Y'all out here trying to fight. But that's a whole nother issue, man. That's why Islam, according to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that Islam would shine from the West, you know, one day. And so that's why we're doing our work over here, is to let that light of Islam shine from the West so we can be an example to those in the East.
Most definitely. Time's winding down. I wanted to ask you about some current events. You know, did you see Chris Rock's special?
Man, I started watching it, and I ain't gonna lie, I fell asleep on it. I fell asleep. Chris just don't do it for me. He doesn't do it for me. Talented brother. I know it's very controversial, so I do want to catch like some of the key points in that piece. But I started watching them, and I was just like, man, I can't do too much Chris Rock, man.
Have you seen Marlon Wayne's one? I thought his was actually a lot more funny.
Yeah. Oh, because he's so animated. He's so animated and extra. So I love that brother, man. But Chris, he's still my brother. I don't agree with all that, of course, he says and does in his own methodology, but he's an entertainer. That's what he's figured out a way to stay relevant and to get people talking and to get people fired up, you know, and he does an excellent job at that. But I still gotta pick apart to see, you know, some of the outrage, people were upset at him, things like that. So
there's a lot of criticism of John Morant. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, that's my brother. I love him. Just a young man, bro, struggling to. I feel like struggling with fame is different for him now. I don't think he's completely gotten used to his celebrity, if you will, you know. And also too, it's just like you got to be mindful of the company that you keep. You know, if he needs to, I really pray that he's evaluating those people in his circle. Because if that was my man's and you in the league, bro, you winning, ain't no way in hell I would have let that ride. Like, bro, get yourself together. And maybe it's the liquor or whatever you got going on, man. You tripping right now because you're so much more to so many more people. So he just got to be wise, man. That's all. The brother just got to be wise and got to understand that this enemy is always looking for a way to use his flaws, our flaws against us, to use our shortcomings against us. So he'll be all right. He'll bounce back. I think it's a learning lesson, but I'm not going to condemn the brother. I've done far worse.
As have I, brother Joshua, thank you so much. As time's winding down, it's March Madness. You got any picks for the tourney?
Oh, I'm a Duke fan, bro. Okay. I'm a Duke guy through and through. So that I'm win, lose, or draw, I'm riding with the Blue Devils. That'd be the only time you see me side